Have you ever wondered when your minerals and royalties are most valuable? There are two key components to mineral valuation: price and activity. And timing can be absolutely critical when it comes to the value of your mineral rights. Today, we're going to be talking about price and how price drives value. So stay tuned and learn something. Howdy folks, my name is Stephen Hatcher, and I created the Minerals Guide to provide tailored content and resources to owners of oil and gas, minerals, and royalties with the goal of educating and empowering them to understand more about minerals as an asset class and the potential value of their mineral rights. In our third series, we're talking about when your mineral rights are most valuable and how timing can impact their value. So whether you're thinking about selling, you're on the fence, or you just want to understand more about the value of your mineral rights, timing is a critical consideration. And here's what I want you to think about. High prices plus high activity equals high value. Price and activity are by far the two most important components to mineral valuation. And if you have both high prices and high activity at the same time, then your minerals are most likely at or near their maximal value. In episode 1 of this series, we're going to talk about what it means for prices to be high. In episode 2, we'll talk about high activity and the types of activity that you should look for. And then in episode 3, we're going to talk about the interdependence of price and activity and how timing drives value. So let's jump into prices. So why does price impact valuation? It's simple. If you own producing minerals, what you own is a stream of cash flows, similar to an annuity, but much more volatile. So as your wells produce oil and gas through time, you are entitled to a share of the revenue generated from them as a royalty. And one of the critical elements for calculating the value of that stream is the underlying price at which the oil and gas is sold. And this is true for any kind of oil and gas asset. So when prices are low, the value of the income stream is low. And when prices are high, the value of the income stream is high. And like I mentioned before, this is really true for any type of oil and gas asset, right? Whether you're talking about operated oil and gas assets, non-operated, mineral and royalty interests, and whether you're talking about the assets of Fortune 500 producers, or you're talking about a 5-acre mineral interest in Weld County, Colorado. This is core to the nature of oil and gas assets. This is why oil and gas companies go bankrupt when prices are low, and it's also why they outperform every other sector in the S&P 500 when prices are high. And what this really gets to is the volatility of the oil and gas business. When prices are high, revenues are high, checks are high, and many folks fall prey to the illusion that it will stay that way forever. What happens? Prices drop, checks go down, and many folks find themselves in a difficult position. So how are the prices for oil and natural gas determined in the first place? Well, the price for anything in a market economy is determined by supply and demand. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about Ford F-150s, football tickets, crawfish, right? This is economics 101. As prices rise, supply rises and demand constricts. And as prices fall, supply falls and demand increases. But there are 3 key things that I want you to remember about the market for oil and natural gas. 1, it's global. 2, it's dynamic. And 3, it's cyclical. And let's jump into each of those. The market for oil and natural gas is global because both of those products are produced, refined, traded, and consumed all over the planet, right? Hydrocarbons are the backbone of the global economy. Now, there's a caveat there for natural gas, right? Natural gas has historically been priced at a regional level, right? Namely due to the fact that you can't put natural gas on a truck, right? It is more difficult to transport than crude oil, right? But with the emergence of the liquefied natural gas trade, or LNG, where we can supercool natural gas, load it on tankers, and ship it across the world, the market for natural gas is becoming a global one. The market for oil and natural gas is also dynamic, right? Meaning that it is constantly changing based on a variety of factors. So, economic expansion, recession, inflation, pandemics, geopolitics, wars, and other conflicts between nations, all of these factors impact either the supply of crude or the demand for it. And each of them, in their own right, can have a massive impact on prices. The market for oil and natural gas is also cyclical in nature. So, similar to the housing market, which we're all familiar with, but much more volatile. And the cyclical nature of the market means that we go through periods of boom where the market is undersupplied and prices are higher. And we also go through periods of bust where the market is oversupplied and prices are lower. And the balancing act of supply and demand for crude oil and natural gas goes on forever and ever. Amen. So, what does this mean for you as a mineral and royalty owner? It means that the value of your minerals can change overnight, right? Which can be good or bad. It means that if you're going to hold minerals for the long haul, then you just sit back and you enjoy the ride. And we're not talking about a ride, a Sunday drive to the countryside, right? This is going to be a roller coaster ride. And it also means that if you're thinking about selling, you need to be strategic about when you exit if you want to obtain maximum value. So now that we've talked about why prices matter and how prices are determined, let's talk about where prices are right now. So as of early mid-February 2023, WTI crude oil is currently trading in a range of between $70 and $80 per barrel. Now, we're coming off of a banner year in 2022 where we saw prices that were much higher than what we've seen over the past decade. So while crude oil has given up some of the gains that it made last year, prices are still high from a historical perspective. So how about prices for natural gas? So natural gas has been trading in a range of between 250 and 350 per MMBTU following a build in supply in a warmer than expected winter. Now, natural gas is also coming off of a banner 2022 where we saw prices that were much higher than what we've seen over the past decade, and prices averaged over $6 per MMBTU for 2022. Now, the fact that natural gas has given up all of its gains from 2022 really shows you how volatile prices can be. And we've seen a tremendous amount of volatility in energy markets over the past few years, right? So starting with the COVID pandemic, lockdowns, which absolutely destroyed demand for both crude oil and natural gas, causing them to fall to multi-decade lows, followed by the emergence from COVID and supply shortage, right? When everybody went out and started driving again and flying, and really a reopening of the economies. And also the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has had an enormous impact on energy markets over the past 12 months. So is now a good time to consider selling? So we're coming off of a screaming hot seller's market in 2022 with those elevated prices that we just talked about. And so for those of you that elected to sell last year, great job on timing the market. But what about 2023? So oil prices are still 15 to 20% above the 10-year average. So if you own an oil-weighted property, now is still a good time to sell. Now, what about for natural gas? With the recent crash we've seen, is now a good time to consider selling a natural gas weighted property? And I would tell you that it can be for two primary reasons. The first is that the NYMEX futures strip, which most sophisticated buyers are going to use to model acquisitions, is currently in contango, meaning that the market believes that natural gas prices are going to be higher out into the future. So think 2024, 2025, and 2026. And this means that the recent pullback in the near month contracts are not going to impact the overall value of your property as much as you might think. And the second piece is that buyers are still largely bullish on natural gas over the long term, which means that you're going to continue to see strong offers. So, where do we go from here? A lot of folks are talking about recession. Inflation is ripping at multi decade highs, and the Fed is currently raising interest rates, right, to slow the economy down. Is this going to lead to reduced demand for crude and natural gas and lower prices? Or are we at the beginning of a new super cycle for commodities where prices are going to be elevated for years to come? These are significant dynamics at play. Recession, inflation, there's a hot war ongoing in Europe right now. There are things like climate change that people are talking about. And the only thing that I am sure of is that change is certain. As a mineral and royalty owner, what do you do with this information? In this episode, we've been talking about when your mineral rights are most valuable and that timing is absolutely critical when it comes to mineral valuation. As a mineral and royalty owner, you have zero control over prices. You also have zero control over activity. About the one thing that you have control over is if and when you elect to exit. So be strategic. If you're a long-term holder of minerals, then you just sit back, you enjoy the ride, and you hope that prices stay high for as long as possible. It's also important to remember that price, while important, is not the only factor impacting mineral valuation. Activity, which we'll cover in the next episode, is equally as important. And even in the absence of high prices, you can still achieve a great value with the right type of activity. If you have any questions for us, you can reach us down in the comments below. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's incredibly helpful to us and helps us to get this content out to more folks. If you want to reach us, you can find us on our website, mineralsguide.com. You can also reach me by email, steven@mineralsguide.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.